Americans have seen these proposals before. They don't want them. So this is the height of legislative arrogance. If you don't like the Cornhusker kickback, get ready. This is the Cornhusker kickback on steroids.
In case you didn't know, apparently Republican polling shows the phrase Cornhusker kickback is saturated and breaking through to the American public.
Soundbites notwithstanding, this is not an agriculture show. Top Line starts right now.
Hello and welcome to ABCNews.com's Top Line. I'm David Chalian.
And I'm Rick Klein.
Each weekday we're bringing you the very latest political headlines, reporting, insight, analysis, everything you need and want to know about politics.
And you find us at Twitter. It's twitter.com/The Note. Let us know what you think. Answer our question of the day. We'll make you famous.
Get us started. What's your top line?
Great preparations. Like any good summit, it's all about the details. And right now, the controversy is less over what's going to happen at the summit than what it's all going to look like, what the size of the table and the shape of the table and where the members of Congress will sit and who gets to talk. All those fun things are what gets worked out in advance. And really, because expectations for any kind of progress couldn't be lower, this is what matters in it is how it looks on television, what members get to actually say their piece, and what the takeaway is going to be.
All about the optics. I do wonder, though, I still think that the president probably plans to take some Republican point that they bring up and then tout it and incorporate it just to say that there was something worthy of having this bipartisan summit for, because you're absolutely right. The expectations on substance could not be lower. Cheney released, the former vice president released from the hospital today, headed home after what doctors say is that he suffered his fifth heart attack since he was about 37 years old, I believe, Rick, that he had his first heart attack. He heads home and is resuming his schedule, according to folks near to Cheney. His schedule includes first one-on-one, in-person, face-to-face meeting with his former boss, George W. Bush, since they left that Capitol on January 20th, 2009.
Glad he's going to make that, and a lot of the Bush-Cheney folks are going to be glad to see it as well. And I'm not a doctor, but 5 is a lot. Like, that's a large number of heart attacks.
The family history, and a minor heart attack, so not obviously, clearly not fatal in any way, but he seems to be able to make a recovery each time.
Pretty impressive. Business friendly. That is the message from the Obama White House and the Democratic Congress today. President Obama addressing business leaders this afternoon and talking about the need to change the climate in Washington, make it more business friendly. In addition to that, the Senate has now passed the $15 billion jobs bill, a slimmed down version, but baby steps is what they're talking about right now. They got the votes that they needed to get this through. Mostly tax cuts here, tax incentives for businesses. Nobody knows if any of it's going to work.
Some infrastructure spending as well. But this plan that Harry Reid has to break everything up into these little pieces and have popular jobs bill after popular jobs bill, I mean, you'll see he had 70 people vote for this today. He increased the Republican participation from the cloture vote on Monday, and perhaps he's going to have these bipartisan votes after bipartisan votes. Probably not a bad thing for Harry Reid, who's in big trouble in Nevada. And finally, the re-elect. Yes, I know it's only a year since Barack Obama has been inaugurated, or a little bit more than that, but the chatter is already starting, according to Politico's Mike Allen this morning, about the re-election campaign, Obama 2012. We're learning that it is most likely to be headquartered in Chicago, as the last campaign was. That whole talk, you know, the Obama folks love this idea of get outside of the Beltway, don't be sort of who's up, who's down kind of mentality that exists here in Washington. And Jim Messina, the Deputy White House Chief of Staff, who really runs the political operation in the White House, looks like he may be tapped to take over as campaign manager this time around.
And this is an awful storyline, if you really think about it, for the White House to have out there. The last thing they need in their relations with Democrats or Republicans is for people to think that he's worried about 2012. There's a little thing called the midterm elections that happened before then that a lot of Democrats on the Hill would rather see him focus on, at least for the next couple of months.
Yeah, I'm sure they did want this out there. Those of you tuning in, of course, to see Congressman Paul Brown, Republican of Georgia, he's not able to make it due to some votes in the House, but we are pleased to bring you our senior congressional correspondent live from Capitol Hill, Jonathan Karl. Thank you for being with us, sir. And let's begin with that jobs vote today, 70 to 28. This is perhaps one of the most bipartisan, substantive votes we've seen in a very long time, no?
Here it is. Hallelujah. Yes. They pulled it off. Of course, it was a tough route getting here. You know, they had an opportunity here for a much bigger bipartisan jobs bill, $85 billion instead of $15 billion. They could have gotten even more Republican votes. Harry Reid decided not to go in that direction, go in this one. But there wasn't a lot here for Republicans to really oppose at the end of the day. I mean, this is largely tax cuts. The big centerpiece of this, obviously, is that tax credit for job creation. There's a little bit of spending in here on highways, but it's mostly tax cuts.
And the strategy now, as David mentioned at the top, is essentially to break these things up and try to get little victories, kind of build on the pieces rather than trying to do something sweeping that someone might call, a stimulus?
Yes, exactly. As Harry Reid said, we don't have a jobs bill, we have a jobs agenda. There'll be a whole bunch of these. Next up is this thing to promote tourism, to promote travel here, and that, for a guy who represents Las Vegas is a pretty good deal. And it won't be very costly. That'll be the next one.
John, you were just talking about the price tag of this one is $15 billion, scaled down from $85 billion. I believe that the House bill is well over $100 million. Eventually, this does need to be reconciled with the House. Do you have any clue up there from the senators how you reconcile a $15 billion jobs package with a $170 billion one?
Yeah. For those keeping track at home, the House bill is $154 billion. As my producer here, my cohort Zach Wolf said, that means this is 10 times smaller. I mean, you might say it's 1/10, but this is a far cry from what the House did. It's unclear what direction the House goes. The House could either pick this up and essentially pass this, this bill, or they could try to merge the two together. Now, Scott Brown, who was the first Republican to come on board to make this vote possible, says that he will not vote yes the next time around if it gets a lot bigger, if the House adds a lot on here. He wants a scaled-down bill.
Well, good luck explaining the legislative record that's developing very quickly there. John, let's talk about this healthcare summit. Republicans obviously are wary about what to expect given the fact that the bill came out. But what's your sense of the Republican strategy going into the room tomorrow?
The big thing for Republicans is they want to go in there and demonstrate that they do have ideas. This is not party of no versus the party of yes, that Republicans have specific ideas on health care and that they have largely been run out of the agenda here by the Democrats. In the process, talk about how god-awful, in their view, the president's plan is.
Right, they'll still be saying no to his plan.
They sure will.
Even though they would like not to be perceived that way. And they felt, right, especially the House Republicans anyway, felt they sort of got the president got the best of them in Baltimore at that House Republican conference, that really worked to his favor. What do you think they're doing optically beyond the messaging that you're just saying right there? But when they show up to this and physically be there, do you have a sense from them antagonistic in some way, try to not make it the president's turf, or do they have to just concede this is still the president's ball game?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely concede it's the president's ball game. Do everything they can to lower expectations.
Yeah.
I mean, every day you're hearing from more Republican leaders saying this is just a show, this is just a photo op, we don't expect anything to come out of this. He's just trying to use us, we're going over to his turf. So lower the expectations and then go in there and try to do the best fight they can.
And we know the plan is going to be reconciliation almost certainly. Are you getting a sense, I mean, Democrats seem a little more optimistic this week about healthcare's chances. Any significant pushback to the use of reconciliation from those moderate senators? You'll need to get some, but not all of them on board to get 51.
Yeah, and if anything, I'm seeing suggestions that a lot of them will support the idea of reconciliation. It looks like they will be able to do it here in the Senate. That's at least the way it looks. I mean, you have people like Evan Bayh who have come on and said that they could support this idea of reconciliation. Joe Lieberman has suggested the same. So a lot of the big names who you saw cause headaches for them in the past seem like they'll go along with this. The tougher question is going to be in the House. Right. Can you still get the 217 votes that you will need in the House to pass a bill that is essentially just like the Senate bill? And I think that's going to be the toughest battle.
And I was also surprised, along that list that you just mentioned, Bayh and Lieberman, Ben Nelson put out a statement yesterday and sort of praising this idea of Medicaid expansion for all now, that what he worked out for Nebraska is for everyone, seemingly like he might vote through the reconciliation process too.
Yeah, and obviously they only need 50 votes, so they could lose some of these guys, but Blanche Lincoln has not been categorical in her statements on that, although she does have a statement out today with Olympia Snowe saying that she thinks we have to have bipartisanship, but she hasn't said point blank that she would be against the reconciliation either.
John Carlo, our senior congressional correspondent up on Capitol Hill, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it.
Cool new background too, John. We like it.
Very cool
It's a good
new
thing,
background.
Excellent.